Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.
Welcome to Community Conversations. This week, and our first guest is Dr. Oh, I forgot to say who I am. I'm Roger Wood, and I'm sitting in for Nathan Quevedo this week. It's a pleasure. And our first guest is a pleasure to introduce to you, Dr. Krista Venetia. And she's with UC Merced and the program director for the Science and Math Initiative. Welcome, Krista.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's talk about Krista before we get into all the good stuff. How did she end up here at UC Merced? I mean, as an old timer around here, I love the new faces that we get because of the campus. And so I always like to kind of know how people got here and what their plans are.
Well, I arrived in Merced. It will be almost 6.5 years now. It was in August of 2006. I learned about the program. I was actually in Washington, D.C. before I came to Merced. People always said, you know where Merced is, right? And I said, yes, I do. I grew up in California in the Salinas Valley area. I always said Merced is almost the same as Salinas, except hotter. So I knew what I was getting to when I moved to Merced. But I met a faculty member who was a faculty member at UC Merced, and was taking a year off to work in DC. And she introduced me to the university and said, there's a job open. Hey, why don't you think about applying for it? So I was working on education policy when I was in DC, and I thought this was a good fit for me. It was really exciting to start a new campus and start a new program at a new campus. So it was one of the challenges I took on.
Great. Well, I visited UC a lot, lobbying for school lunch program, kind of like a salesman for school lunch. We do frozen Freestone peaches in my earlier life. And so I went there a lot. Now, were you a staffer for one of the members, or were you in committee? Or
a committee, yes. I worked for the Committee on Ways and Means.
In the House?
In the House, yes. It was an excellent learning experience. I loved working there, but working for government is hard. Working for Congress is hard. It's a hard job, and it requires a lot of time and dedication. And I always say I was the old lady in the office. I was 28 when I was there.
I was going to mention that. It looks to me like the place is run by kids when you go back there and you're old.
It is run by kids. A lot of students right out of law school, a lot of students right out of college, because it takes a lot of energy. So they're really enthusiastic and excited. I learned so much about how government works, but I wanted to go back to working for a university. So.
And a 40-hour work week is kind of like no one even knows what that means back there.
No, it's you're working until the job is done, no matter how long that takes. Yep. And if you have a committee meeting, you work as long as you need to.
Yeah, and 28, see, you were the senior person,
I was.
I remember one of my first years we went back there and we must have interviewed to talk with 30 different staff people. And this one lady was probably around 50, and I thought she might have been my grandmother because everybody else I'd been seeing was like 22, 23 years old. So it's an interesting world back there. We're glad to have you out here in the West Coast where people know what's going on and where you were born and raised anyway. So let's talk about this Science and Math Initiative and how, because UC Merced is not known for creating teachers, if I remember correctly, and the Science and Math Initiative does what?
So the Science and Math Initiative was started in 2006. It was a partnership between the governor of California at the time, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the UC president. The idea was there was a huge shortage of qualified science and math teachers in secondary schools in California. And so their thought was to start a program to encourage science, math, and engineering students to possibly go into careers in K through 12 teaching. And so this initiative was started. It was based loosely on an initiative that was out of the University of Austin, Texas, called UTeach, where they found if they put undergraduate students, so freshmen, sophomores, juniors, in classrooms with local teachers and give them an opportunity to experience what it's like to be a teacher, it often sparks their interest in going into those careers. So that's what the program started with. We started here at UC Merced in 2007. So it was a UC-wide program. So each one of the UC campuses, except San Francisco, has a science and math initiative, or CalTeach. Some of our campuses call it CalTeach. And the idea is having these undergraduate students go into the classroom with the hopes that they become teachers.
So even though UC Merced isn't known, or most of UC is not really known for producing teachers, the idea is to introduce UC Merced students to the teaching profession by actually being in the classroom and hoping that maybe after they get their bachelor's, they might decide to move into the education, especially in the science and math area.
Yes, that's correct. So the program was started for science, math, engineering majors. And what we do is that we have a set of 3 classes. They're called Intro to Teaching Science and Math, and we have them for elementary school, middle school, and high school. And the students get an opportunity to work with local teachers in their classroom. We place them in their classroom for about 3 hours a week for 10 weeks of the semester, and they get to experience what it's like to be a teacher. So the first part, they just observe what it's like. Most of them haven't been back in a classroom since they were actually students, so it's an eye-opening experience for them to see what it's like on the other side of the podium. I get a lot of, I should have been licensed to substitutes, or I should have done this when I was in school. But it gives them that opportunity to see what is it like. Some of our students have always known they wanted to become teachers, and this gives them an opportunity to see, hey, did I really want to do an elementary school? Maybe I wanted to do high school. But it gives them that real world experience of what it's like to be a teacher. And most of our students absolutely love working in the classrooms here in Merced.
Good. Now, do they actually get some credits then in this towards their BA or BS?
Yes, they get, our classes are 2-unit classes, and we have a minor called Natural Sciences Education minor, and these classes will count towards that minor if they decide to minor in that.
Okay. So it's not just extra duty, but they actually do get classroom credit for both. And there's some classroom teaching as well as going out into the school system.
Yes, so we have a seminar class that runs once a week where the students learn a little bit about what it's like to be a teacher, what classroom management, how do you teach a class full of 30 students a subject like science. So we give them a little bit of background. Those classes are taught on our UC Merced campus. They're taught by former teachers. We have 2 teachers that teach those classes right now, and then that's to supplement their experience working with the K through 12 students in the classroom.
Good. Well, it's, I mean, it also fits into UC Merced's thing about encouraging people to go to college. It fits into that goal of UC Merced to get more Valley people out into the higher education.
Yes, one of the things I hear from the mentor teachers is that their students get to see a real life college student. Many of them don't have the opportunity to have anybody in their family that went to college or anybody they knew went to college, but they have a student that's working with them every week that is a role model to them. I had a teacher at Stoll Elementary tell me one of her second grade students said, I want to be an engineer. She had no idea what an engineering was, but she had an engineering student from UC Merced in her classroom, and she said, that's what I want to do when I grow up. And those are the stories that I love to hear.
Great. Well, now to kind of, as we work on the last little bit of the interview, let's talk about the new addition of the Merced education scene that you're a part of, or
yes.
at least you work with, let's put it that way.
Yes, so UC Merced does not have a school of education. This is not something that UC Merced is planning on doing in the future, but we'd like an opportunity for these UC Merced, CalTeach, SMI students to be able to go to a teaching credential program. So we were looking for a program locally that would give us an opportunity for our students to move seamlessly from UC Merced and their bachelor degrees into a teaching credential program. And we found that with Fresno Pacific University. Fresno Pacific has opened a center here in Merced. It's on G Street in El Portal. And they, starting this summer, so summer 2013, will be offering teaching credentials here to UC Merced students as well as any other community members that are interested in getting a teaching credential.
And this is like the first time you could come to school locally to get a credential here in Merced County.
Right. Stanislaus, Cal State Stanislaus does do a little bit of teaching credentials here in Merced, but this is the first one that will be actually here in the city of Merced. So we're very excited about that program.
Good. And is Fresno Pacific, just so we'll give a little pitch for them, are they going to do some other parts of education, or is their education here primarily aimed at teachers?
Yeah, so right now the biggest program that's going to be at that Merced Center will be teacher education. They're going to be offering both single subject and multiple subject teaching credentials, as well as a Master's of Arts in Teaching. That's a new program for their entire campus, and they're very excited about being able to offer that here in Merced.
Wow.
Yes.
And I assume it's teachers all the way from preschool and kindergarten up through secondary?
Yes. They do early childhood education, which is preschool. They do multiple subject credentials, which is elementary, and then single subject credentials, which is high school.
And if you did a master's, you could even teach at junior college level. Is that correct?
Yes, if you have a master's grade, that is correct.
All right. Now, how about a little contact information to close out our interview?
Yes, well, if you want to learn more about our program, our website is smi.ucmerced.edu, and you are also welcome to email me. My email address is kvenetia, that's V as in Victor, ENECIA, @ucmerced.edu. For more information about the Fresno Pacific programs, you can take a look at their website, which is fresno.edu/Merced. And their phone number there at their center is 209-354-5807.
Well, thank you, Dr. Krista Venetia with UC Merced, Program Director of Science and Math Initiative.
Thank you so much.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.
Welcome back to Community Conversations. This is Roger Wood, and our guest for this segment is Lisa Cicero, and she is the Public Information Officer for Delaware North, who just happens to be the company that manages Yosemite Park. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to talk about Yosemite in the winter. I think that's very timely.
It is very timely, absolutely.
And what are we going to talk about?
Well, I think, it's really good just to highlight, first of all, what there is to do in Yosemite in the winter. We have a lot of visitors that come in the summertime. Yosemite really offers a variety of things to do in the winter. And obviously one of the highlights is the Badger Pass ski area. Not everyone knows this, but Badger Pass is the oldest ski area in California. It opened in 1935. And it's a really good ski area for families. It's a place to learn to ski. There's a lot of different elements to Badger Pass. Not only can you do the downhill skiing and snowboarding, there's different snowshoeing opportunities, really great cross-country ski trips that you can take out of Badger Pass. So there's definitely a lot to do, and I'm sure we can get into that a little bit, but I understand that you actually ski back at Badger as well.
I did. I learned to ski back there in probably about 48, 49, and I tell you, it was a lot harder to learn to ski then than it is now. The runs weren't all groomed, and they had all T-bars and a rope tow for us beginners, which is really hard. The T-bars weren't the easiest things in the world instead of the chairlifts, and but I made many a trip up there and put the chains on at Chinkapin and head on up to Badger Pass. And there was even some race called, it was on Friday afternoons, and if you could make it, it was called the Silver Ski Race. And if you went down from top to bottom in 2 minutes or less, then you earned a silver ski, and I think you might even have got your name in the lodge or something like that. And if you got down to like a minute 30 or something, then you even got a gold ski or something like that. So it was quite a place. And one day, one of your people sent me a nice coffee table book about Yosemite, about winter in Yosemite. And it also mentioned that I thought was fascinating was that Badger Pass was in the running for the Olympics. Do you know that?
Yes.
Isn't that a great story? What was it? Was it 1938 or something like that? I don't know. It was.
I know it was in the 30s, but I remember it was, if I'm correct, it was Lake Placid that won the bid over Badger. And I've heard a few colleagues say that winter actually in Lake Placid wasn't very good, and it was actually better out in Yosemite. So who would have known if they had it here? But that is some fun history to it.
Yeah, but I think in those days the real skiing was that run that runs you to over near Chinkapin. I can't remember what it's called, but there was a creek, and there was a run where you could go off the backside, and that was a large part of the skiing. Was that kind of, you might want to call it? It's not really cross country because it was downhill, and you ended up down by Chinkapin someplace. And there was also a lady from like La Grande, which is in the southeastern part of Merced County, who I think was almost to become an Olympian, or maybe did, and then suffered a car accident and was unable to compete. And she was training at Badger Pass back in those days. And that's
Have you been out to Glacier Point yourself? Are you a cross-country skier?
No, I like gravity to do as much work for me as it can.
That's great. Well, if you ever get a chance, it's quite remarkable, and for people to know, what you can do is you can head up to Badger Pass, you can park there, and you can ski out to the end of Glacier Point Road and obviously enjoy those amazing views out there. And it's about a 10.5-mile trip each way, and there's actually a little ski hut where you can stay the night there. So that's a really unique Yosemite and winter experience, and definitely is good for the body in terms of working out, and then you have these amazing views. So you definitely can't beat it.
Do they also, they used to have like cats that took people around on tours up in the mountains around there too. I don't know where that still happens or not.
No, we're not doing that anymore. I'm not sure when they were doing that up at Badger.
Well, like I say, I'm going way, way back. Back before you, for sure. So you mentioned in your notes to me that another thing that we have available is the photography opportunities at Yosemite.
Sure. I mean, a lot of people probably are aware of the Ansel Adams Gallery that's located right in Yosemite Valley, and we've partnered with them a few years ago to be able to offer their photography classes and workshops on our website. So when someone's booking a stay at Yosemite, they can not only book their room, but they can add on a photography class to the experience. And they do some really great programs. They do these free camera walks multiple times throughout the week, and then they have half-day classes that are a little bit more different elements. One of them is, how you can use your digital camera in the park, and there's another one that's really fun. It's called In the Footsteps of Ansel Adams, where they take you to all the kind of iconic locations where Ansel was able to capture his favorite photos. So that's a really great opportunity, and those go year-round, and in winter especially. I mean, the scenery that you have here is really phenomenal. Even if you're an amateur photographer, you can just come here with your point-and-shoot camera and get some really great photography at the park.
Now, I was trying to remember, another thing was that I hadn't heard about that you mentioned to me was the Yosemite Insider Experience. What exactly is that?
That's actually a fairly new program, too. That's something we partnered with the Yosemite Conservancy, and what that includes, it's good for people that have been to the park especially, or anyone that just wants to know a little bit more of an inside scoop about Yosemite itself. So what you do is there's a Yosemite Conservancy naturalist that takes you out for about a day and a half in Yosemite and go to all these different locations, and you learn about the park, and it also includes your lodging. So it's just a really great experience. You have this guide that takes you to all these wonderful spots, and you can ask questions along the way, but you also get a lot of the history of Yosemite that you might not normally get when you come to the park. And that's a year-round program that we're doing, so we do have winter and spring dates coming up, and then of course we run this in the summer and the fall as well.
Yeah, I was remembering when you mentioned Ansel Adams, I knew there was something in my slow-moving mind mentioned. I remember reading one day where a photography guy here in Merced was talking about at a certain time of the year you can go and try and catch the full moon in that famous full moon picture. Is it over Half Dome or that Ansel Adams has? There's a picture he has with a full moon, and it seemed to me like it was snow. And it's one of his more, at least picture I see a lot around here. And the fellow had even organized a trip up there to catch it at the right time to be able to do that.
Absolutely, especially any of the meadows too in the valley. You can get some really great full moon viewing and photography. And Cook's Meadow is a great one where you can get Half Dome and the full moon in there. And thinking of full moon too, we actually have one coming up in February. And something else I didn't mention earlier is Badger Pass offers full moon snowshoe trips.
Oh,
so you
really?
can go up to Badger Pass and do a full moon snowshoe, and there's a guide that takes you up throughout the Badger Pass area to do that. And it's really fun. It's good too if you have a family, if you have older children. I would say it's good for anyone that's 10 years and older. And we have those coming up on I believe it's the second or third week of February is when we have a full moon. And so what we do is not only the full moon itself, but even the 4 days before that. So that's a fun opportunity for people.
If you haven't been into the snow in a full moon, it is like daylight with all the white, and then if you hit the full moon with a clear night, it's just you can see very easily everywhere you go.
Isn't that amazing?
Yep.
Just seeing, especially the cliffs, because all the Yosemite cliffs have the snow and just the color. It's just quite pretty. I remember my first night here seeing a full moon. I was blown away. It was just beautiful.
And also now Delaware North, just to give you a little plug, our family's had a cabin at Fish Camp since the late 40s, and now you have a facility at Fish Camp called Tenaya Lodge. Huh?
We do. It's a really beautiful resort. It's just outside the south entrance on Highway 41 in Fish Camp, and we've been operating that for many years now, and it has a full spa and many dining facilities. So it's a really nice option for people when they're coming to Yosemite.
So if you can't get in the park and be at the Wani or at the lodge, that's another choice. But I'm getting short on time. But one last question: is the ice skating rink still around, or did I see that it was slated to not be open anymore?
It's still around. You've probably read there's a lot of different planning that's going in the park right now, especially the Merced River plan. That there's a lot of different options to change the look of what Yosemite will be in the future. And I know one of that is possibly removing the ice rink. So definitely there is a history of ice skating in Yosemite, and people love it, and it definitely is still open. We usually have it open through mid-March, so it's a great time to come up and enjoy that as well.
Well, to refer back to that coffee table book that I had on winter in Yosemite, the ice skating rink also figured into training for professional ice skaters and for Olympic ice skaters back in the 30s and 40s.
And even to this day, the Yosemite Winter Club that's been around since the 20s, they have a a hockey team that uses that rink. So it's pretty fun. It's good for the local community, and I know a lot of the Yosemite visitors really enjoy it.
Okay, well, Lisa, it's time to close our interview. How about some contact information, how you can find things in Yosemite?
Absolutely. Pretty much all the information on activities and hotels in Yosemite you can find on YosemitePark.com. That'll include information as well for Badger Pass ski area.
Great. And I want to thank you very much, Lisa Cicero, our Public Information Officer for Yosemite and Delaware North, for being on our Community Conversation show.
Thank you for having me.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.
Welcome back to Community Conversations. Our guests for this segment are Jonathan Zamora and Augustine Martinez, and they're members of the Los Amigos. I'll call them Social Club. I think they just call themselves Los Amigos. And to give you a little background, I met them because I was emceeing the parade, the Christmas parade in Atwater, and this group of huge number of horses and a bunch of people on a float, and then 4 or 5 musicians in white suits having a good time. And they went on, and they ended up having a party way after the Christmas parade was over, which made me kind of worried about them because it was kind of cold out there on that Friday night in December when they had the parade. And so that's how we come to know Jonathan and Augustine. And welcome to Community Conversations, gentlemen.
Thank you, Roger. First of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting us. We're part of a social group, like you said, from Merced, from Chowchilla and Fresno area, also Modesto area. We like to enjoy a culture and have a tradition with our horses. We started 2 years ago, and we decided to form a group, something nice that could present our roots, our traditions from Mexico. And so we are glad to participate in all kinds of parades, and so that's what we do.
So now, so you did the Atwater parade. Like, let's talk about how many parades and where do you go?
We go everywhere. All the towns, from Chowchilla, Fresno, Modesto, Sacramento. We just hear about parades and we go and we have fun, entertain people and show our horsemanship skills. And so we enjoy it a lot. It's a hobby, and so it's for the love of the horses most of all. And we focus on the Spanish breed, which was a horse from Spain, and we also have a lot of Azteca horses, which is a Mexican horse, and we have also the Frisian horse.
You know, someone asked me, were the horses dancing or not? Because I talk about the people in the white suits that were playing the music. They were definitely dancing. And they said, well, do the horses dance too, or do they, or are they just special horses?
Yeah, well, they're specially trained. It's called the Alta Escuela. So it's the piaffe, which means it's a dancing in one spot. It's like a trot in one place. And so there's main different tricks. There's a passage, which is a trot, a fancy trot, and there's a Spanish step where it's a march where they have they extend their front legs. And so it's all about art. It's an art actually. It traces back to Spain. So that's where we got our roots, and then we just specialize doing that.
And so how many folks are in Los Amigos, more or less?
Well, we lose count, but there's around 30 of us. So we just like to go to events, anywhere with music, with banda, which is it traces back to Sinaloa. It's all brass, and so we also have mariachi, which a lot of people know they're more familiar with. And so that's the music we represent, and so the horses dance to it.
Well, to give our listening audience a little bit more information, after the Christmas parade, I was downtown visiting some friends, and I kept hearing Mexican music at least an hour and a half after that parade. And I said, well, where in the devil's that music coming from? It must be those Los Amigos guys. So I get in my car and drive, and there they are having a party in the alley behind some place. Now, tell the story about that.
Well, go ahead, Agustin.
Well, we wasn't there at that time. At that parade, he wasn't there.
Yeah, I actually missed that place.
So, Augustine, you have to talk then. So get up here and talk into that mic.
We went to it's a friend. He has a store there in Atwater, and just spend time a little bit.
Just have party wherever there's music and there's horses. We always do a show, so we enjoy it. We love it. It's something we really like a lot.
Well, I was impressed with just all the animals and the people and the musicians in the parade, and then when I suddenly hear this party going on for an hour and a half later in the cold winter night. I said, well, these are definitely people that are Los Amigos. And so I was really, I'm really glad that I got a chance to hook up with you. I know Augustine and I called back and forth a few times, and I didn't know where you gentlemen were from. Because the cell phones, you never know where they are. And so you're in Merced now. How do people, if someone else is interested in being part of your program and with horses and everything, how would they hook up with you?
Well, yeah, everybody's welcome in our group. We encourage people to be involved in these kind of activities because it's something really nice to experience. And so if anybody is interested, in contacting us, my number is 559-871-6815. My name is Jonathan, and everybody's welcome.
Good. Well, I like I said, it was very impressive. How many horses were there in Matwater? There were a lot.
around 25 horses.
Around 25.
Yeah.
I mean, they were far and away the biggest group, and they were at the end of the parade, and they certainly, like I said, they certainly caught my attention with all the fun they were having. And then when I saw that party afterwards, I said, we have to talk to these guys because they know how to have a good time.
Yes, we do.
All the time.
So I want to thank you both for coming in, and again, Jonathan, give out that phone number one more time.
Oh, it's the number is 559-871-6815.
Thank you very much. Los Amigos and Jonathan and Augustine.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.
Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm Roger Wood, and our guest for this segment is Teresa. How do you say that last name, Teresa? I forgot to ask you. Spizzano?
Spazzano.
Teresa Spazzano. And Teresa is with the Ag Extension Service, and she is the Family and Consumer Science Advisor.
The Nutrition, Family, and Consumer Science.
Oh,
I try to get it as long as I can.
Well, we've used up a minute of our interview now, but we know who you are and what you do. So anyway, Teresa, and as the case of many of Ag Extension people, Teresa is covering more than one county, which didn't used to be the case, but it is now. And so she's based in Stanislaus County, but she also covers Merced County. And she has some things to talk about that I thought are pretty interesting. Farm to School program, what is that?
Farm to School, well, it's an ever-changing topic. So originally, of course, it was always just kids learning about farming, and in the Central Valley, that has never been anything different. Our kids are farmers, but in this ever-changing climate that we're in, more and more of our kids don't know where their food comes from. So when I came on about 5 years ago, we started a full-fledged farm to school program where we were bringing fresh local produce from farmers in our area they donate the produce, and we put out a newsletter that has all the information about the farmer, what he grows, where the families can come and get it, where he sells. And then what we really like to do is bring a human interest story into it. So, how long have they been in the valley? And just like some family connections where it makes it fun for the kids, because then they're like, oh, this is someone that I actually know. I go to school with him, because we're still a pretty small town, but we are growing.
Yeah, and there is a little less connection with agriculture than there used to be. And the fact that, used to be so many children worked in agriculture, and now it tends to be more people that are in their early 20s or something like that. Where in the old days, a lot of people 16 worked in the summers and went to work till they were through school and through college. And
my parents,
not so much anymore.
No, not at all. I didn't do it. So, and we're really finding what I found was shocking. I thought, in the Central Valley, our kids know where their food comes from, but they really don't anymore. And so we're trying to bring that back to them. And what's nice is with the new USDA standards for school food service, food service is now allowed to buy local, because what the USDA is trying to do is build up more of those small farmers, where it kind of became more of a big farm program. It wasn't a lot of our small farmers didn't see that they had the opportunity to sell to the schools, whereas they do now. And it's been just this year, we've gone from 4,000 students to over 7,000 students that we are serving now with Farm to School.
With some farm to school. And this is in Stanislaus and Merced counties?
Stanislaus and Merced counties, yes.
So I assume these programs are going on elsewhere in California as well?
Oh, yes. And it's growing quite rapidly, which we're glad to see. So, it's a lot of fun for the kids to see that.
We were talking about the old days or so. One thing this is going to kind of surprise you, maybe hopefully not frighten you. How did you come to be where you are today? Your education program, maybe where you were born and raised or whatever. Because I always like a little personal interest about the person I'm talking to.
I'm actually from Siskiyou County, so a very rural area. I always laugh because I'm from Etna. No one ever knows where that is. But,
nope, I'll have to admit I don't.
It's when I went to school there, it was 800 people. I think it's probably down to 300 because it's a logging industry and farming. So I grew up around farming, although my father wasn't in farming. My grandfather was in farming. So I'm like one of those kids. I was kind of removed from it. I still went, I got to see it, but I wasn't on farm, although I was in 4-H. I'm a second generation 4-H'er, so.
Yeah, well, that's good. And now to get into this job in Ag Extension, what type of education did you have to pursue?
Well, I kind of went about it kind of roundabout. So I actually wanted, like all kids, wanted to be a veterinarian. And actually went to Oregon State to be a veterinarian and fell in love with just animal science. And so I went on and got a master's degree from Montana State in ruminant nutrition. Well, then I came back to California, started having a family. When I got pregnant, I realized, oh my gosh, I know about nutrition. So I know that nutrition is very important for someone who's pregnant and for your baby. And I started looking around, and nothing in our area, because we had moved into Stanislaus County, and there wasn't anything because we had lost our advisor. So there weren't any nutrition programs for pregnant women that we didn't have to pay $1 bazillion at the hospital for. And I found a maternal child nutrition program up at UC Davis, and shocked my husband when I told him when I was 3 or 4 months pregnant that I was going to start another master's degree. But it all worked out for the best.
Good.
So,
well, we're glad you're here. Now, listen, we've gone around and used up our time already, but how about giving people contact information for yourself and for the program?
Sure. I am usually in the Stanislaus office, and my phone number there is 209-525-6825. Or you can always reach me by email, and you can find that on either one of the UCCE websites in Stanislaus or Merced counties.
Tell them that the exact website. I forget.
Oh, goodness.
No, I tested you, didn't I?
I know. It's very long. Google it.
Okay. Yeah, or Cooperative Extension Merced or Cooperative Extension Stanislaus on Google, and you will find it without using all those other words.
Exactly.
Teresa Spezzano from Stanislaus County, Family Nutrition.
Family and Consumer Science.
Consumer Science, because I didn't write that down, so I can't remember it even over a little short interview. Thanks so much for being on our program.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.
Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm Roger Woods, sitting in for Nathan Quevedo for this segment. And our guest is Jim Bunnell, Social Worker Supervisor of the Adult and Aging Services Branch of Merced County Human Services Agency. And what never ceases to amaze me is how many different programs and things go on in Human Services Agency. Everybody thinks it's just welfare, but it's way more than that.
There is so many services for children, for adults, for families. There's a lot of services our agency helps provide.
And so today we're going to talk about for adults and aging services. So what are we going to talk about on that?
Well, I'm going to specifically talk about the Multi-Purpose Senior Services Program. And this is a real neat program, Roger. It has to do with seniors, and the multi-purpose part of it is we have a nurse, a public health nurse, and we have a social worker that work together with each senior to try to help them stay safely in their home and to, or at least to avoid the premature placement in like a nursing home. So we want to keep them safe and keep them at home where they want to be.
Now, what type of do you have to be poor or just by yourself, or what makes people eligible to be served by your program?
Good question. It actually is for seniors that are 65 years and older, and we've had some over 100 years old, and we've helped keep them safe in their home. And it's also for low income, for individuals that have Medi-Cal and they have what's called a zero share of cost. They don't have to pay any share of cost for their services. They're usually on SSI.
Do some of your clients happen to be people that don't really have family to take care of them as well?
That's more common nowadays with the nature of families being all spread out. It used to be spread out over the city. Now it's spread over the country. And, you know, for different reasons, and with people living longer, they become isolated real easily. They came over and they had a family member. The family member had to leave because of a job or something, and they want to stay where they're at. This is home.
Well, I think it's a great program, and I tell you, getting old is tough. I'm getting there myself. Someone told me getting old is a lot of work, and I think they were kind of right about it. But, you know, when you get up and if you have something that causes you where you're not so mobile as you used to be, or you no longer can drive, getting old is really, really tough.
One of our retired social workers told me once that growing old is not for sissies.
You know, and it's right, you know, and there's such a difference, you know. I mean, some people go through aging pretty well, and others have some real challenges. And boy, you have to feel for those challenges. And everybody always says, I hope I go kind of quick, but we don't all get blessed with that. Exit from life. Sometimes it's tough, and it's tough on the, you know, and what's really important, I think, is how tough it is on caregivers. Do you provide support for them as well?
Actually, we have another program that's called the In-Home Supportive Services Program that provides services where we authorize services based on individual task and how much time a person may need or not need, and they put that together and come up with authorized hours. And then if the person has their own care provider that can be acceptable, you know, that's the preference, because, you know, they're letting somebody into their home. It's better to have your mom or your grandma have somebody that they know come into their house than have a stranger.
Yeah, there's always a few horror stories about somebody that looked like a really good helper and turned out to be a taker instead of a helper.
And there are so many other situations where people do above and beyond, and what happens in those situations is nobody hears about those. You know, the ones that aren't related to the individual, the ones that maybe get connected with somebody and they just really go out of their way to do more than they're required to do, and take them in for holidays and take them to church and do all kinds of things.
Those kind of people make your job fun, right?
Yeah, they do. This is a real neat program. We don't get complaints about this program, because it's, along with being 65 or older and having a zero share of cost, they also need to have they're the most frail of our clients that are older. They're the ones that are most at risk of going into a nursing home because of they're not able to ambulate. They're not able to transfer as well. They living alone, they're at risk of falls, and if they didn't have some help, that they could fall and nobody know it for who knows how long. So you know, there's a lot of different ailments and impediments that our folks have that are heroic, because they want to keep going and stay in their home.
Do you provide support like for those emergency bracelets or necklaces you can wear?
Yes.
Those things, boy, you know, I remember my mother, when she was getting old, she always didn't want to put it on if she went to the bathroom. And I said, Mom, that's when most trouble's going to happen.
Yes, you got to keep it with you all the time. But yes, there's two parts. Well, let me go back
Sure.
a little bit. Our social worker, and actually the 3 social workers we have, they've all been with this program at least 10 years. So they've been working with this program and this group of clients and have a lot of expertise, a lot of knowledge to help our seniors. Our nurse is a public health nurse who is also a registered nurse, and she's been with us in this program for over 8 years. I'm the newer guy. I've been supervising it maybe a little over 6 years. But each one, the nursing part and the social work part, do their own assessments of, who this person is, what kind of supports they have, what kind of needs they have, and then they come together with the individual and come up with what's called a care plan. And basically the care plan is, here's the things you need, and here's how we're going to try to help you with that, and here's who's going to do it. And they're part of the plan. And we work also with their family members. We work with the friends, community resources. We get them connected with trying to arrange for things such as some of the things are like adult day health care, and also arrange for durable medical equipment, which they don't realize that they can get for free, that they can with their Medi-Cal. Also, Medi-Cal covered incontinence supplies, which for older folks, that's important. They also help with referrals for Meals on Wheels, in-home supportive services, which I talked about before. Adaptive telephone equipment, that would be like the kind of telephones that have the big numbers, or to help the individual with maybe that has hearing problems or vision problems or mobility problems, so they can use the phone. Where there are services that aren't arranged, we also provide services that can be purchased by our program. And we've helped get folks get electronic call devices, which, it's a cost. It's an every month cost that for an individual that's on a fixed income, it would be really hard for them to provide that for themselves.
Yeah, and those are, I remember a senior person I knew real well. He had signed up for one of those services, and it wasn't 2 days later when he was short of breath and used it to seek help to take care of his breathing problem. He ended up in the hospital for a day or two because of some breathing issue, and he was a believer in that program after that.
Well, I'll tell you, we have one individual that actually was attacked by somebody, and if it wasn't for having that with her, she probably wouldn't be alive today.
Yep.
And she's a good advocate for them. She swears by that. So,
Well,
and
Jim,
she's a sweet
we're
lady.
about out of interview time. If someone is interested in contacting you and finding about whether they need to be a part of your program, how would they go about doing that?
Could I tell you just about a few of our other things we can pay for, just briefly? Wheelchair repairs, wheelchair ramps, we're also able to help pay for. Respite care, if you have a care provider that needs a break, which is not uncommon. Also bus passes. So these are important things to help keep individuals, our seniors, as independent as possible and safe in their own home.
Good.
And you asked me about where people would call. They can refer themselves, or if they have a loved one who's a senior who's 65 years of age or older, our referral line is 385-3105.
385-3105. If you would like to see or learn more about the Adult and Aging Services branch of the Merced County Human Service Agency. Jim Bunnell, thank you so much for being part of our Community Conversations program.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Roger.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.
Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm Roger Wood, sitting in for Nathan Cuvedo for this segment, and our guest is Joey Chavez, who is the Recreation Supervisor for Merced City, and he has some basketball information.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me aboard. I guess I'm the old vet here, but I enjoy coming here. Just want to give you a little updates with our youth basketball program, our Junior Warriors. Started off, you kind of stress over registration, but you can see the economy has, it's taken off a little bit here. In the past, our numbers have been, with 80 kids. This year, it's pretty much doubled. We have 200 kids in our league now. So it's a very plus for us. Normally, we have a total of 12 teams in the league with a Pee Wee division, ages 2nd through 4th, and then grades 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th with 4 teams. So now we have 6 teams in each division. So pretty busy night at the Boys and Girls Club, Monday through Thursday evenings. We're running from 5:30 to, the last game gets over at about 9 o'clock, and then our Pee Wees come in on Saturdays from 9 to noon. So we got a busy day at the Boys and Girls Club all week.
Now, when you double your number of players, that means you need more umpires or referees. I'm sorry, we see basketball, we talk about referees, right? You need more referees and coaches and...
Yeah, pretty much a few more coaches, and all our coaches are volunteers, so they're mainly parents that are, coaching their own child or a brother or a sister. We do have a few females that are coaching our Pee Wees. Officiating, it's our, pretty much I have really a crew of 3 guys, and they're great. They've been with me for the last 3 years. George Segura, Marcus West, and Alex Alvarez that take care of all the refereeing. They break it up, and they give me the schedule, what they want to work, and they run with it. So they're my eyes and ears there, and I rely on those 3 a lot, and they do a really great job for me.
Well, it's a difficult job doing refereeing for little guys because the rules are a lot more flexible, I guess is a better way to put it, than they would be if you play in high school or college or wherever else.
Yes, they are. They pretty much, every kid, there's about 10, 11 kids on the team, but every kid has to play a quarter, or they're playing, we're rotating every 4 minutes, so everybody does play in the league. We're the Junior Warriors. We're called the Junior Warriors program, so we're affiliated with the Golden State Warriors, so the kids get a reversible jersey. We have sponsor names in the back, and then they get a headband and a certificate at the end of the year.
And the program goes for how long?
We go for a couple months. So we should be done probably the first week of February.
Okay.
We just actually started our league last night, so we just kicked off last night, and it was all good news.
And everything goes at the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, everything's at the Boys and Girls Club
for the youth program.
For the youth program. Now jumping into the adult league, another great turnout. The adults are very hard to get crowd together. The youth are going to sign up, but the adults, I send out mailers, but then I always follow up with a phone call, and they really appreciate that because everybody's busy. They got their kids in programs. They're taking them here and there, so they like to be reminded. So I remind them what's going on, when's registration. So our numbers picked up this year. We had 18 teams last year in our adult basketball league. This year we're up to 30 teams.
My goodness.
So it really took off. So that's, and I give all the credit to the adults that come back. I must be doing something good with the city for them to come back. And
you've been here longer than 2 years.
Yeah, I'm going on a 5-year anniversary. So it's a good relationship. I keep in contact with them, emails, let them know my door's open with them 24/7. They know if I need to get a hold of me on the weekend, they'll get a hold of me. So I have an open line communication with the adults. So our adult league, 30 teams. It's busy. I'm the only one in the office doing schedules for youth and adults, so it was kind of stressful getting that done, but I got it done. So the adults, we have 2 locations. We play on Sundays only. We go from 11 to 5 at Merced High. We go 11 to 5 on Sundays. We actually started last Sunday there, and then we also use the Boys and Girls Club on Sundays from 11 to 5. So there's a total of, you're talking, 6-hour day, 7-hour day.
Wow. And on a Sunday, and adults, to get 30 teams sounds.
Oh no,
sounds fun, because Sunday's not maybe the best day. I mean, that's.
They like
especially the football games are all on, and well, of course, football's going to be over pretty quick.
Yeah, they it's funny because a lot of them, they know it's playoff weekend,
right?
But they'll bring a radio in, or someone will bring like a little TV, so they'll keep updated with stuff. I might come around on the weekends and I'll check on the sites and see, how everything's going. But again, Marcus and George, and Irene Segura, they're taking care of the gym site. So I mean, I rely on them. I trust them, so everything runs good.
So you don't have to be out there all 6 hours on Sunday.
No, I usually come by and drop by.
Good crew that's helping take care.
Yeah, they're my eyes and ears.
And you got a different set of refs and everything else to deal with.
Yes, we do with Masso, and that's the price is a little bit more expensive, but they're adults. They take care of the game. So, and we've been with those guys for a while too. So it's a good relationship with Masso.
Now, with the difficult city finances and all, here your programs are expanding. Do they somewhat self-support with the entry fees, or how does that work for you on your budget?
With our adult sports, we're pretty much at 100% cost recovery with the numbers. I'm really, really good with my numbers. I'm really tight. If I don't need something, I won't get it. So I think this year our numbers will pan out. I think over a little bit at 100% cost recovery. With our youth, we're supposed to be in the master plan at 50% cost recovery, but I want to say we're close to about 95 costs.
Wow.
95%.
With sponsorships.
With sponsorships. I did really well for the youth. I ended up getting 16 sponsors this year for a total of almost $2,300, which is really good. Normally I get maybe a handful of sponsors because you're competing out there with girls softball, soccer, baseball, which their season starts now. And but with the business I do in town, I know a lot of people here.
Good. Well, and you're a hustler, and that's what you need to be a recreation person. You're always hustling on recreation.
Yeah, you have to hustle, and I don't mind asking. I don't get $5, $10. It all adds up, and it helps to keep the cost down for the kids.
Well, I assume baseball or softball's coming up next. Why don't you give the times and some contact information if people are interested, because basketball's already running.
Softball's actually, we're getting ready to start. Got phone calls on that. Registration will start in the first week of February through April 6th. Registration fee is $550 for that. Projected start date would be April 22nd. And ready to rock and roll, so you guys can come visit at the office at 678 West 18th Street, or you can reach me on my direct line at 385-6978, or you can email me at chavezj@citymerced.org.
Super. Well, thanks so much for being back on our program, Joy. You're a regular, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Merced County's news voice since 1936. News Talk 1480, KYOS, Merced.